All right, to discuss matters further, next we're being joined live by Dr. Gilbert Doctorow, who's an international affairs analyst, a renowned author and historian, and has a clear opinion on matters from his end. We will like to speak with him next on this. Welcome to the broadcast, Dr. Doctorow. Always a pleasure to have you here.
Thanks for the invitation.
Doctor, do you see a hostage deal in the works? As Qatar seems positive, but Israel has not confirmed it yet.
Oh, it's entirely possible. Sooner or later, this will be resolved. The question is how many of the hostages will have survived while Israel continues its rampage in Gaza. But yes, some hostage exchange will take place. The details, of course, are not disclosed to us.
Doctor, now Israeli forces have released footage of a tunnel under the Al-Shifa compound, again reinforcing Israeli claims of Hamas using tunnels under hospitals, using civilians as human shields. Now, are civilian casualties an inevitable consequence of this war here? Could Israel have applied another tactic here which could have hopefully and possibly avoided the amount of deaths that we've seen in the region?
Well, I'd like to comment first on this remark that the Israelis have released footage from the CCTV that was running at the entrance to the hospital. The most important comment on that is the no comment that I saw today in the major international broadcasters, CNN and the BBC. There was no coverage whatsoever of this Israeli released footage. That is to say, these major broadcasters do not believe for a minute that this is anything other than Israeli propaganda. That may sound a bit peculiar, but let's remember that in the last 2 weeks of international broadcasting about the Gaza conflict, the Israeli spokesmen have been cross-questioned, have been interviewed by the BBC, by CNN, and these journalists have allowed the Israeli spokesman to hang themselves. That's to say, they gave them a lot of rope, and they let them present the Israeli case to be what it is: outrageous lies and stonewalling. So the fact that these were released to social media tells us nothing. I don't believe for a minute that the Hamas would have let CCTV run during this operation. Of course, they would have closed it down. Just as when the Israelis took us into the tunnel, over to the entrance of the tunnel, and brought out 11 Kalashnikovs as proof that the hospital was being used for military purposes, the journalists from these major Western broadcasters questioned them with the obvious point that what kind of a brain center of Hamas could this be with 11 Kalashnikovs, which they clearly suggested were planted by the Israeli defense forces. So what's coming out of Israel is very ugly propaganda that is being denounced most remarkably by the Western media.
So there is some kind of a disconnect there between what the leadership is saying in terms of their support for the Israeli forces, but what the media is covering in terms of what they're questioning of all that is coming out from the Israeli front. Doctor, I also wanted to get your opinion on this now. On Sunday, the Houthis claimed to have seized an Israeli cargo ship in the southern Red Sea. However, Tel Aviv has denied ownership of the vessel and said there were no Israelis among its crew either. How do you see this one panning out between Israel and Yemen?
This is child's play compared to what the Yemenis are about to do. Russian television last night, the Russian premier news program, News of the Week, was explaining that the Houthis are prepared, the Yemenis are prepared to fire missiles on merchant ships passing through the Suez Canal and or the Red Sea. In effect, while we have been talking about the risks to global fuel prices by a possible Arab boycott of Israel and or restrictions on sales to Europe, we have an imminent other threat that nobody has talked about till now. The Yemen is 30 million people. It's the poorest country in the Arab world, but it has an arms production which is formidable. And they have an arsenal of missiles that are ship sinkers. So at any moment, the Yemen can put the global logistics at great risk by sinking ships in these international waters that are used by most of the transport from Europe to the Far East and back. These are threats that no one is taking into account right now, and they are realizable threats.
Doctor, I want to slip in one last question very quickly. Now, the death toll in Gaza has gone up to 13,000. No ceasefire in sight. Israel has gone through northern Gaza already. What's the end game here? Where is it finally leading to? Is it going to be a complete siege, complete takeover?
Well, takeover is already being implemented. What is the question is the ethnic cleansing and the eviction of Palestinians. Right now, there's been discussion of the Israeli moves in the south of Gaza. Let us recall that more than 1 million Palestinians were under pressure from Israel, were evicted from the north so that they could proceed with their destruction of most of the residential housing and infrastructure, and they were told to take refuge in the south. Now, the latest developments are that Israel has said it's concentrating its next moves on the south, and it's instructed those in refugee camps to move to a limited area within the south, which the UN has said is unsupportable. So the next move that Israel would like, is very clear, would be to expel them all into Sinai. Now, this is a move that could trigger a regional war. Jordan, the most closest ally of the United States in the region, has already declared that it will open a war with Israel if they try to evict the Palestinians into Sinai. So we are not past the dangerous moments in this conflict. They are still ahead to be resolved.
The dangerous moments are still ahead to be resolved. Definitely testing times, and we're hoping that there should be peace in the region very soon. Thank you so much for joining in on the broadcast, sir. That was Dr. Gilbert Doctorow joining us right here on WION The World is One, sharing your insights on this.
Thank you.